كيف تعمل اليونيسف من خلال الدعم المستمر والشراكة من الاتحاد الأوروبي على تقليل المخاطر التي تحدق بالمراهقات من خلال برامج التوعية وتعزيز قدراتهن ومهاراتهن لكي يشعرن بالقوة ويلهمن فتيات أخريات ليصبحن فاعلات في مجتمعاتهن وقادرات على صنع التغيير، وكيف تعمل اليونيسف على حماية الأطفال في لبنان. هذه الأسئلة وغيرها سنطرحها مع رئيس قسم حماية الطفل في اليونيسف السيدة ميكي هيجبرجيتس. It's right.
That's
You're
correct.
most welcome in our studio, Mariam TV.
Good morning and most welcome.
Shukran. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, could you give us a briefing about the situation in Lebanon regarding violence against children?
Thank you so much. So what we are noticing through the national surveys that we are conducting with our various partners is that intimate partner violence in families is intensifying, and that means that children witness and experience more violence. At this moment, from last year's survey, we see that 57% of children experience a form of corporal punishment, which is a slap on the body, it's physical violence. But there is also more emotional aggression.
In Arabic country.
Unfortunately.
So we see an increase in gender-based violence cases since last year with 6%, and we have witnessed an increase of child abuse cases with 44%.
First, you're most welcome. We're so happy to have you and to shed light on this important topic. Can you give us a brief about the different types of violence in Lebanon? And can you tell us, are we experiencing any increase in violence against children, specifically in Lebanese society?
Thank you so much. Nice to be here with you also, Tamara.
Our pleasure.
So what we are witnessing is an increase in child abuse with 44% since 21, and an increase in gender-based violence since 2021 with 6%. And we see a whole range of increase in regard to neglect, physical abuse of children, and emotional abuse and aggression, but also exploitation. So the number of children working and being exploited has intensified, up to 12% of households that are now exploiting children to work.
This is so sad.
Are girls and young women are more subject to violence in Lebanon?
So what we experience and witness is that both boys and girls are equally affected by any form of violence and abuse, but boys experience more physical violence and girls more psychological and emotional violence.
What are the main reasons behind this increase of violence against children, and in specific against girls in Lebanon?
At this moment in time, we are all aware about the various crises that Lebanon is experiencing. We call it the poly-crisis, from a political crisis to a financial economic crisis, but also with 2 years of lockdown and school closure and virtual learning, and a late start in the school year this year, and a mental health crisis because of various calamities over the years and generations that has carried over from generation to generation. And this in totality leads to families having difficulty to creating a nurturing care environment.
They become more stressed
for their children. So the moment that parents' levels of distress increases, levels of violence in the homes is going up, but people are living on the edge. So also in communities, in schools, we witness intensified levels of child abuse.
رح نجرب نشوف مشاهد من سبوتات عملتها اليونيسف بركي فيديو إذا جاهز. Meanwhile, I want to ask you, can you explain what is UNICEF Child Protection Program about?
I'm so happy to talk about that. We work in Lebanon on a two-pronged approach to addressing this problem. One is from the bottom up, starting at the family level in the communities, while also working at national level with policy reform and legislation. So from the bottom up at the family level, it's very important for us now, all of us, that we put children first in families and strengthen the capacity of families to create a nurturing care environment. So first we create awareness about children's rights, the right to a name and an identity, the right to live and belong in a family, and through parenting programs. So the parenting programs is helping the caregivers with information about how to maintain a quality dialogue and interaction, about proper diet, a proper rhythm and regularity of a child's life. At the community level, we are working to mobilize communities around the child with a lot of community dialogues called Kutwa, to which I come later in the interview in more detail, but we are sensitizing a wide range of partners in the community around the harmful cultural practices, negative social norms, to make sure everybody knows their role and responsibility in safeguarding the child. And very important, recently we started to work and sensitize religious leaders across the country. We have worked with 132 of them and are launching an interfaith network with 16 religious leaders at the end of this month. But then, in addition to these so-called parenting and family strengthening community mobilization programs, are called prevention and early intervention services. But at the same time, we have to strengthen the systems of the government and civil society for health workers, social workers, police, the juvenile judges, the lawyers, as well as the teachers, to know what they need to do to identify signals of distress in children, but also to refer children when they have been hurt in any manner, when they observe violence or abuse or drug addiction, what to do with children at risk.
Yes, you mentioned something very important, the early intervention. What is the importance of intervening in specific topics that's related to child violence?
So we, in Lebanon, we focus on three causes. One is physical violence against women and children, child marriage and child labor. And it is very important that every child is safe at all times, in the home, in the community and in the school. And that every child has the same right to grow, survive and thrive to their full potential. So the moment the child gets hurt, they get paralyzed. They will not be able to study and to focus.
For sure.
Because they will live in fear and anxiety. And at this moment in time, the levels of anxiety are very high amongst children, as they worry about their parents with the financial crisis not being able to provide. And we see that that calls to helplines like Embrace or the Mayhair call center are going up for children who experience depression, but also ideation of suicide and fear for the future.
Yes.
Okay, we will watch together this video, please.
Thank you.
بس ندخل على المركز نحس بالأمان. أنا مثلا كنت ارتبك قدام العالم، كلمة لا صرت أقدر أحكي لا، إنه الشغل ما بتبسطنا. أنا صرت عندي قوة شخصية، صار عندي ثقة بنفسي، صرت البنت اللي ترتبك ساعتها المعلومات اللي أنا انتفعت منها ساعتها هي إنه أنت حقك تحكي، من حقك تعبري عن رأيك،
وإنه الزواج يعني ما خلص ما بيوقف الوحدة إنه ببيتها وهيك وشغل البيت وبس، يعني بعد في كتير قصص بدي أعملها.
لازم كل بنت تجي لهون لتكون قوية وما تخاف، ما يكون في شيء بقلبها يقول لها خاف.
Could you give us some examples on major achievements, please?
We have been working very closely with the Ministry of Social Affairs and the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Labour, Interior, Health and Education, and with civil society to develop the National Programme of Action for the Protection of Women and Children. We are soon launching the National Child Marriage Action Plan, and with the Ministry of Labour we worked on the development of the National Child Labour Action Plan. That's all very important as to create policy frameworks and action plans to work together at all levels. But also we have been working to advocate for the release of children from detention, as no child should be detained but live in a family environment, and that is a process of continuation, and we are working on the law reform with the amendment of Law 422, and we are in the final stages for that in close collaboration with the Ministry of Social Affairs, Justice and with Parliament. But most important impact we are seeing is from the Kudwa program, which is this large-scale mobilization at the local level with the barbers and beauticians and taxi drivers and coffee shop owners and parents themselves in order to change behavior to creating a nurturing care environment for children.
How is the Lebanese crisis affecting your work, and specific what's related to child violence in Lebanon?
So we see a high level of uncertainty and families breaking down as a result of the crisis, because it is so multiple, from the financial and economic crisis to high levels of unemployment, but up to 80% of households living now below the poverty line.
What's the importance of the partnership that you mentioned with different sides?
You know, I have worked in other continents for a long time, and they always say it takes a village to raise a child. But the criticality of protection should be really at the core of society, with all the partners we work with, for which we are very grateful. The Office of the Prime Minister, the various line ministries I mentioned, the Parliament, the National Human Rights Commission, but also our sister agencies in the UN, UN Women, UNHCR, FAO, ILO, and the World Food Programme. And these are important, together with civil society, organizations who provide the critical child protection and GBV services. They are really at the core, at the bottom of the community. But we appreciate working with the municipalities, with the police, the social workers, and the juvenile judges to make sure that when there is a child in distress, there is a pathway to legal medical aid and justice.
Yes.
Great. What is Kudwa?
Kudwa.
And why is it important?
You know, I came to Lebanon a year ago and learned about this Kudwa, which stands for role model. And it is an edutainment program. So for 4 years, they studied the harmful practices and negative social norms in the communities and developed 144 different communication instruments to initiate dialogue in the community around child labor, child marriage and violence against women. And children, over 100,000 persons have now been sensitized, and TV series were portrayed on TV in the Bakir series with over 1.2 million persons being sensitized. So why it is important? Because everyone has a responsibility to create a care and nurturing environment for children, but sometimes either cultural practices or strain on the family prevents them from doing so. So it is a mobilization program that really explains what children's rights are, equal rights between boys and girls, women and men, and why it is important for children not to work at an early age, not to be married off at an early age, but for all boys and girls to thrive to their equal potential.
So it's spreading awareness.
It's a massive awareness and community mobilization program.
Let's watch a video about this.
Thank you.
خلينا نشوف فيديو عن قدوة.
شاركت كمصففة شعر بدورة تدريبية عن عمالة الأطفال والعنف ضد المرأة والأطفال، عن الزواج المبكر.
أنا مصلحتي حلاق من وظيفتي أنا، يعني من خلال التدريبات اللي أخذتها يعني بشغلنا صرت قدوة لأقدر وصل هالأفكار.
هلا المعلومات اللي عند وسام حسيتها مثلا انه اوسع بكثير من المعلومات اللي عندي، فانا عم احاول كثير اني استفدت منه. كنت اجي مثلا كل 10 ايام، صرت كل اسبوع اجي او كل 4 ايام اجي مشان اخذ معلومات جديده.
أنا كتير مبسوطة وفخورة أنه عم كون عامل إيجابي بالمجتمع وقدوة لغيري. بحس حالي أنه زبوناتي يعني قادرين أنه يتأثروا برأيي مثلا. حلو الإنسان يكون فعال بالمحيط اللي هو عايش فيه.
This is amazing. Thanks for your support.
In Lebanese, in Arabic, we say يعطيكم ألف عافية for this massive awareness. You are truly spreading massive awareness, as you said. Have you experienced any significant change after all these programs and all these partnerships?
We are witnessing a lot of change. We are getting a lot of quantitative and qualitative stories coming in. At the end of this year, we will conduct an assessment to really measure the impact in how far it reduces child labor, or at least the worst forms of child labor. Yes. At this moment, we cannot avoid children from working because of the financial crisis. But of course, they have to be educated. But we do see anecdotes in informal settlements in the north, in the south, and the east of less children being exposed to the worst forms of child labor, less girls becoming married off, but we would like to see more of it.
As you said, in these days we can't stop children from working because of the crisis. So I want you at the end of this episode to give us a brief, some tips. How can employees and businesses ensure, what steps can they take to ensure that they are not exploiting child labor?
So the minimum age should definitely be pegged against the age of mandatory education. So children should not become employed below the age of 15.
Yes.
Secondly, working hours would need to be respected and enough rest, water, food for children to benefit from while working, but it should
Syrians
not come.
and Lebanese.
Yes, it's across the society. And it is important that children's work doesn't come at the cost of their education.
Yes.
So that is most important, that they are continuously learning.
In parallel their education.
And that if they work in conditions on the field or in textile industries, that they have the appropriate gear and are protected from, toxics or from harm, from any harm at all times.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Miki, for this lovely interview and for your support through UNICEF in Lebanon. And thanks for all your team in Lebanon, UNICEF team, the Lebanese guys also.
Huge thank you for everyone working on child labor and on all people in society. And we are very happy to have you today. Thank you for being with us.
Shukran, it's a privilege and an honor for us to be able to explain it.
It's our honor. هذه كانت حلقتنا اليوم. رح نختم مع فيديو كمان عن قدوة بنهاية هالفقرة. بدي أشكر زميلتي تمارا وأشكر ضيفتنا كمان مايكي وكل اللي ساعدونا من اليونيسف لحتى نكون عم نحضر لهالانترفيو. وايضا بدي اقول لكم انه كل المقابلات او الانترفيوهات اللي مرقت اليوم فيكم ترجعوا تشوفوها على صفحتنا يوتيوب مريم تي في لبنان، ونحن دائما معكم من الاثنين لنهار السبت ببرنامجكم اون تايم على مريم تي في. نشوف هالفيديو سوا والله معكم.
اليوم كنت عم بدير نقاش تحت مبادرة خدوة عن مسلسل بكير. حضرنا المسلسل وكنا عم نعمل مثل جلسة حوار ونقاش نحن والحضور اللي كانوا موجودين معنا هون.
ليش بدك تشيل الصبر من المدرسة؟ أنا بدي ضل مع الفاضي.
شهادات والعلم ما بتعمل شيء. الشغل هو اللي بيفيدك.
صرنا عم نستخدم قنوات لنوصل من خلالهم الرسائل التوعوية اللي بتضوي عليها قدوة مثل العنف الأسري، الزواج المبكر أو حتى عمالة الأطفال.
لما بتعرض الاشياء كمسلسل او كفيلم بتكون قريبه كثير من المشاهد، تكوني عم تتعرفي اكثر على الموضوع. يعني عم بحضر مسلسل لاستفيد منه.
انت بدك تحكي مع الناس لنقدر نتفاهم.
هيدي الأدوات ساعدتنا أكتر نكون عم نوصل للناس ونطلع منهم هن الحلول، لأنه هي فتحت مجال يكون في مساحة آمنة.
يعني نحن كلنا بدنا نحترم آراء بعضنا. عم نضوي على الأخطاء بطريقة سلسة بس بطريقة بتوجع لأنه أثر كتير فيي. أنا أكتر شخصية تأثرت فيها هو هيدا الشاب يلي انجبر يترك علمه لحتى يروح يشتغل ويتعلم مصلحة.
اللي قدام يمكن بيتحطم هيدا الشاب، بيضيع، يمكن يضيع من عائلته،
لانه هو ممكن يتعرض هيدا الطفل. قد ايه هيدي الغبار اللي طلع من الصخر قد ايه عم بيسبب اذى لصحته واذى نفسي كمان له.
لازم يكون في ثقه بين المراه والرجال ويتفقوا مع بعضهم.
من بعد الحوار اللي عملناه بعد المسلسل شو شافوا، شو هي السلوكيات اللي هن رفضوها، صاروا يعرفوا انه هون في مشكله عم يتضوى عليها وهن طرحوا الحلول.
مره كانت عم تنضرب من قبل الجوزة فاضطرت تهرب لتحمي بنتها.
والغلط هروبها من البيت، ما هو عرفته إنسان منه منيح. نعم. يعني تخيلي أنت ولادك تخليهم مع إنسان مجرم. نعم. لا أنا ضد هيدا المبدأ.
أكيد بنحترم رأيك.
إحنا وصلنا بعصر في جمعيات، في حماية لها.
هيك نوع من الحوارات عطتهم الفرصة أنهم يحكوا يعبروا، كل واحد بياخد الرأي أو الحل اللي بناسبه أو باللي بناسب مشكلته. عدم المامة بالقانون.
برأيي أنا عملية التوعية هي مفتاح أساسي. كل إنسان جار للجار كذا يفهم يسمع يوصل الرسالة لنحمي هالبيئة المجتمعية.
أنا بعرف مصلحتي ومصلحة عائلتي كثير. اسمعني مني ما بتأسي قلبك ورد عقلك عقلي.
هذا الوعي بيجي يمكن من شخص حدك عم بيشجعك، عم بيوعيك. الجارة كتير عندها وعي للحياة.
شفتي كيف تأثر؟ يعني هو إذا بينشغل عليه لهذا الرجال بصير منيح، صدقيني.
دايما في حوالينا موارد، ممكن يكونوا أشخاص، ممكن يكونوا استشارة قانونية، ممكن يكونوا جمعيات، لحتى نحاول نلاقي حلول لمشاكلنا شو ما كانت.
المرأة شو لها دور برأيك بهذا المحل؟
أنا المرأة هي بتلعب دور كتير مهم بالحياة. أكيد هيدي لما بيبقى في توعية وفي ثقافة بتقدر كل ست أو أي شخص يساعد في يزرع المحبة ويزرع الصلح والأمان.
ورا هذا النقاش اليوم اللي صار وهالتحاور اللي صار مع بعض، أي شيء شوفه غلط رح أحكي عنه، رح ضوي عليه بأي طريقة.
وبعتقد إنه كتير مهم هون نضوي على كلمة قدوة. كيف فينا كل واحد عن جد يكون قدوة لغيره بتجربته. يمكن اللي زبط لعائلة نقدر ننقله كتجربة لعائلة تاني يكون عم بيساعد.
كناشطة بالمجتمع كنت عم باخد جلسات توعية من الأول مع مبادرة قدوة بمحل معين إنه لازم نكون نحن قدوة لغيرنا وننشر الأشياء اللي أخذناها لمجتمعنا وللأشخاص اللي حوالينا.
شكرا لأنه لبيتوا دعوتنا. بتمنى أنه الكل اللي يكونوا موجودين هون يكونوا قدوة لحماية الطفل بالمحيط تعولهم.